You're listening to Partnernomics Podcast, where we discuss the art and science of developing successful strategic partnerships. To learn more about the suite of Partnernomics solutions, visit PartnerNomics.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Partnernomics Podcast. This is Mark Brigman, and as always, I got my sidekick, Mr. Tyler Pittman over there. Tyler, what's going on, man?
How we doing?
So we started today off on the golf course, man. It's a good way to start the day, right?
Can't beat that.
Well, unless you play like me, anyway.
Or me.
But yeah, man. So now we're back here in the studio. Looking forward to connecting with more folks out there and sharing some information with them. Man, let's tell people how they can launch questions into us if they're wanting to throw some topics out here for us to talk about.
Yeah, any questions anyone has that is listening, just shoot an email to podcast@partnernomics.com, and we will either email you back with an answer or we will answer them on the podcast itself.
So we're using Podbean as our primary podcast hosting service, and one of our buddies, Tom Wisnowski, you always got to have a smart aleck one in the crowd, but I saw a comment he threw out there about wiring up some cameras.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I don't know about you, but I've got the face for radio.
I like to think I got one for podcasting. We'll get on camera soon for you, Tom.
Yeah, man. So we've been talking about it. So it's going to be in the evolution probably within the next month or so. We're going to pop up a couple different cameras here. We're still trying to figure out the best route to go with that on the editing and also the capture. We want to make sure it's solid quality. So we're still doing some research, but it's definitely in the plan. Sometime within the next month or two, we'll launch that out here. But man, so what do we have lined up today, Mr. Tyler?
Well, today we have, talking a little bit about the success characteristics of partnerships as you've experienced through your career. What leads to successful partnerships. The success pyramid overview, which you created through your book and developed. So we'll talk about each aspect of it, and then specifically we'll talk about trust and do a deep dive on the research you've done regarding trust, who you've interviewed, and get your insights on it. So
sound good.
Yeah.
Sounds like a full little list of conversations there.
Yeah, good information. So we'll start off by when you think of partnership success factors, it's obviously a big, wide range of different things that could go into this. And I just want to ask how do you wrap your head around that big of a topic and really narrow it to the success factors?
Yeah, so it's probably, I'm going to guess somewhere in the late 2000s, 2007, 2008, right? I was neck deep into this PhD program that I was in. And as a part of that program, we had to do tons and tons and tons of research. Mm-hmm. And so I was, in a biz dev role at Sprint and involved in some really cool partnerships, building out new products. At that time, I think I was leading the business development efforts for Sprint TV. And I really became fascinated with that question, right? Mm-hmm. What are the success characteristics for partnerships? And so that's something I really dug into in research. And the way that I wrap my head around it, because it's a massive topic, mm-hmm. and literally dozens and dozens and dozens of reasons of why partnerships fail. But the approach that I took was, one, if you really boil down a partnership, you boil that down, it's relationships. It's relationships with people.
Right.
We say, business is about relationships with people. Companies don't do business with companies. People do business with people. And so the first kind of lens that I used to look at this question was around relationships. How, what are those success characteristics, those success factors for interpersonal relationships? And then the second lens that I used is, as you think about the partnering process A to Z, I was looking through the lens of pre-contract signature process and then post-contract signature process, which is really the management or the operationalization, if you will. And those are the three lenses that the way that I try to wrap my head around partnership success.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a broad and big topic that you kind of need to break it down into those segments to really hone in on each one specifically to, know how best to succeed. So, so you conducted a success factors for partnership study, in the book that you wrote, Partnernomics. And can you tell us a little bit about it and what the study included and your results from it?
Yeah, so I was really lucky just over my career to build a strong network with some biz dev, strategic partnering gurus from really all over the country. From doing hundreds and hundreds of deals with Sprint and big companies. So a lot of really smart people with strong insights to leverage on that. And so as a part of writing the book Partnernomics, I wanted to do a study to answer this question. What are the top imperatives, if you will, for partnership success? And so I reached out, interviewed, I built this survey and reached out to my network of just the partnering ninjas, right? Just these partnering masters, these different executives from various companies, and asked them to participate. And whenever we got the results back, I was floored at how consistent the results were.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically what we had was, to distill it down, it was trust, it was alignment of what the two parties are wanting to get out of a relationship. The third was, we called it transparency, but it was really about effective communications. The fourth level was about commitment, but the general consensus is it's more than just commitment, though. You need it has to be like the ultimate commitment, especially for strategic partnerships, because strategic partnerships, by definition, you're trying to do something really innovative.
Right.
Something really challenging, and you're going against the status quo. And by definition, you're doing something that has not been done before, and you're going to run into challenges, conflict. You're going to be pushing each other. And so commitment has to be an absolute must. If you're willing to throw in the towel whenever times get tough, I mean, you're never going to make it even to second base, because you're going to have tough times.
Right.
So that was the fourth level. And then fifth is results. I mean, you have to have results, right? Out of every relationship, you have to get your needs met, whatever those are. And so those are the five components. We called them the 5 imperatives for partnership success. And man, it has been really fun to put it into a framework and to communicate that and teach it over the past several years to companies.
Right. So those characteristics put together, into the success pyramid, how business leaders, can they use the framework? How can they use it and really leverage it to their organization and implement it into their companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been lucky and had the opportunity to present to Vistage groups, Rotary groups, CEO forums, these different organizations. And typically what I'll do is put together a presentation that talks about the partnership success pyramid, right? Trust, alignment, transparency. The fourth level, we call it esprit de corps, but it's, then a high level of commitment.
That's the Marine in you, right?
That's the Marine in me.
Yes, sir.
That is the Marine in me. And then to get results, that's the fifth level. And so the thing that I tell people whenever I present that information is, if they don't walk away with anything else, understand what the partnership success pyramid is, and before they execute partnerships, use that as the litmus test. Use that to run this impending partnership through that test. What is our level of trust? Are we aligned in our cultures and what we're trying to accomplish out of this, right? Our
Right.
goals. I feel like we can effectively communicate with each other. Go through that and use that framework as a test, and constantly use it as a test. Not just pre-contract signature, but all the way through the relationship.
Throughout the whole time, right?
Use that.
Right. Yeah, I've, the more thought leaders interviews, which we'll talk about in the following podcast, that I've watched, and specifically the one I'd been cutting recently was the Paul Zak one on trust factors. So it really made me realize the importance of trust specifically in organizations and between people. Why did you choose that to be, the first characteristic on the pyramid?
Yeah, because the survey results.
Yeah.
So I ended up interviewing and working with, gosh, I want to say it was 106. It was just over 100 different business executives that had decades of experience of managing massive partnerships. And the overwhelming response was trust is number one. Trust is the foundation of every relationship. And if you don't have trust, you don't even need to take the next step.
Right.
And so, yeah, trust is the foundation of the partnership success pyramid, right? We call it the first imperative. And, we really tried to then go into finding different resources and really trying to understand more about this whole trust thing, getting people to understand, what is it, why is trust important? How can we develop more trust within not only our own teams, but within the partnerships?
Yep.
And how do we assess our levels of trust with partners, and really use it as a tool to increase our effectiveness.
Yeah. Because I don't think, in my experience, is trust and how to really build trust is talked about enough. Because it's prevalent in everyday life, just with, relationships, whether it be with family, teammates, colleagues. So to make it the most important factor, or first factor specifically, it definitely is important,
Yeah, there was a survey that was done, I believe it was in 2016 by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they polled a bunch of CEOs and just asking about trust and trust within their organizations. And 55%, so over half of these CEOs said that a lack of trust within their own organization was a threat to their growth.
That's crazy.
Yeah, of these CEOs, over half of them say that they have, low trust. They have low trust organizations.
And these are people that they hired, you're supposed, that should be the first thing, is that you're going to trust that person to get the job done. And man, the fact that over half are saying they can't trust them it's a big number.
Well, it's trust within, it's trust all the way around. It's people, it's employees feeling like they can't trust each other. They don't trust management. They don't trust the organization. In general, I think over the past several decades, and Simon Sinek talks about this a lot in his content, but just the way this whole kind of downsizing and just the way that corporations interact with employees and employees interact with corporations, there's loyalty is not what it was 20 or 30 or 40 years ago,
right?
Between those two sides. And that's a component of trust also that really hampers companies' ability to grow.
Yeah. Because, at the end of the day, you got to be able to have the confidence in, whether it be your boss or whether it be the employee under you, that they're going to get the job done when you need it done and how you need it done. So what are, on the topic of trust, what are resources available for people that they can, go get and read through that will teach them more about building trust and the value of it.
Yeah, so obviously there's always books that we can go grab, but man, I've really found a lot of very insightful videos on either TED Talks or
Right.
on YouTube.
Right.
There's some great presentations that are put out on trust. And I've looked at a lot of them, especially after doing the research for the Partnership Success Pyramid. I really took each of those 5 elements and tried to break them down to just understand more of the art and science of them, the pieces of them. So not only to understand what each of those imperatives are, but what can we do to leverage that knowledge? I mean, how can we build trust deeper, faster, stronger? And how can we teach other people to do it?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some great books out. Actually, The Speed of Trust is one that I read, several years ago, many years ago, actually. Put out by Stephen Covey. It's a great book, and full of a lot of good information of what it means to build a high trust organization, and then really the benefits that come from building a high trust organization. And then another book that's out there, Trust Factor by Paul Zak. It is an awesome book, and as an economist, as a researcher, kind of a data geek, I really love what Paul did with his work because he took a very quantitative, scientific approach, not just kind of anecdotal. And both of those are tremendous resources, and we use those within our framework as we're teaching people this world of trust.
Right. Yeah, the Paul Zak one specifically, since I've recently watched his interview with you, the depth of the research he did, and like you said, the science he applied to it, it gives you an entire new view on what trust really is, and it just helps to, like you said, understand. It's one thing to understand what trust is, but to be able to really apply it, to build it, it changes the game, really.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah. So that also reminds me, since we've been posting snippets of our thought leader interviews into Q&As on LinkedIn, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and it's all at Partnernomics. So
we got all of them covered, don't we?
Yeah, we got them all covered. we appreciate the follow. So we're trying to get a following and just spread the knowledge to these people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, we had was it somebody from Germany or something like that?
Germany
that responded back to one of our posts.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was, someone from Canada, obviously a lot closer, but man, it's cool to see that we have that international reach. Even.
Yeah, it resonates with all people.
Yeah.
All over the globe, really.
Well, let me throw something out there. So we were talking about the speed of trust a little bit, and Stephen Covey's work. And my big takeaway from that book was he had a line where he said, "Trust is an economic engine." And what he develops, very well in the book is this idea of organizations that are high trust. They spend their time executing. They spend their time accomplishing goals or working toward their goals, working toward accomplishing those goals. And they don't spend time always looking over their shoulder, waiting to see who's there to stab them in the back. They trust each other, and they trust that they're going to be treated fairly. And that, like you were saying earlier, other employees have their back.
Right. Yeah, they know they don't have to worry about it as much. And actually, to that point, one of the comments on the LinkedIn post with Paul was, talking about, you see people that lack trust in their own relationships, they're quicker to, tell or say somebody isn't trustworthy. And that's a good point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the question that we posed out there with the thought leader interview with that Q&A snippet was, do you need to extend trust or give trust in order to receive trust.
Right.
And yeah, Paul's like, yes, and he kind of went into his explanation. But yeah, trust is one of those interesting things, man, and it's so much can be gained by really understanding it. And like we said, it's the first imperative with every relationship. If you don't have a solid base of trust,
Yeah.
you're done.
Yeah.
You don't get to go to the next stage.
Right. You don't make it to the next step. And that's all it is if you don't have that floor to stand on, then you're going to fall.
Yeah.
So it's very important. So I meant to ask you, not necessarily relating to trust at all, but to your book, I wanted to ask you if you ever thought you would be an author.
Never.
No?
Never.
No?
So after I finally finished my dissertation, man, I was hoping that I would never even have to look at Microsoft Word again. I was so done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beast, completing
Yeah.
the PhD dissertation. It's massive. I mean, just so deep in research and looking at and exploring hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different studies and pouring through all of that. Man, I was so burnt, so spent. and actually it was just from after starting Partnernomics, I started working with companies and understanding, where are they at? Where are the processes? What are the challenges that they're having? Okay, now let's go in and try to fix them. And what I constantly found myself doing was essentially writing these little white papers or these little playbooks of, okay, so here's the factors of success. Here's things that you need to focus on. And basically just writing these mini playbooks, if you will.
Right.
And I had lunch with another gentleman who is a 6-time author. And, but I kept telling him, I was like, man, I'm really running into this wall because I feel like whenever I first start working with a company, I have to hit rewind for a while and just get on the same page with them so that we're speaking the same language.
Right.
And they have to have a playbook. Well, most of these companies, most of these organizations didn't have a playbook at all. And he's like, well, hey, dummy, those white papers, those little mini playbooks that you're giving people, we call those chapters. And so you just need to round this thing out to show people what your methodology is, and it's going to make your life so much easier.
Yeah, it packaged everything together.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to go ahead and throw some stuff out there if we've got enough time for it, just to talk about Paul Zach's work.
Yeah.
We talked about, so Paul took this very, very scientific, very analytical, very quantitative approach where he's talking about trust. And he was the first person that made this link, not just a correlation, but causation. A causes B. And it was between trust and the chemical oxytocin.
Yeah.
And so he did a significant amount of research and learned that there's 8 different factors that lead to trust and they grow trust. And in his book Trust Factor, that's kind of the full component, the full breakout of all of his research. Man, if you love numbers, you will love that book because it is full of them to really get a clear picture of what trust is all about. But just some of the kind of high level pieces of that is, he said that employees at high trust companies report 106% more energy, 76% more engaged, 74% less stress, and 50% higher productivity.
Wow.
I don't know a CEO that doesn't want all of those.
Yeah, all 3. Yeah, when I think back on relationships I've had in my life, regardless of the situation, that I'm in with this person, and I realize the ones that I trust, the relationship is better. I mean, in any sense, so, well, that about wraps us up time-wise. So before we conclude, I would like to mention, again, if you have any questions for us, to shoot an email to podcast@partnernomics.com, and we will get those answered for you.
Awesome, buddy.
Yeah, cool.
Another one in the books.
Another one.
Well, thanks for tuning in to Partnernomics Podcast. We'll see you next time.
Partnernomics Podcast is brought to you by Partnernomics. Learn how to leverage the power of partnership. To listen to more episodes of Partnernomics Podcast, visit partnernomics.com.